Congresswoman Cammack is a Republican of Florida, representing the state's 3rd congressional district. She serves as the lone Florida Republican on House Ag and on Homeland Security as lead Republican on the subcommittee for Emergency Preparedness, Response, and Recovery. She's also the youngest Republican woman in the 117th Congress. She tweets at Rep. Cat Cammack. Congresswoman, welcome back.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So you won your primary. Congratulations.
Thank you. Woo! It's always nerve-wracking getting to that part and then past it.
So what have you been getting up to on the recess? What have you been doing?
So much of the time in August is for us on the campaign trail because our primaries in Florida are so late in the year. We're one of the last states in the union that has their primary. So it works out for us that in the month of August, we're typically campaigning all the way through, which is a really great way to be out talking with voters, talking in the community and just checking in with folks. Mm-hmm. And it's been very interesting to see how the national issues have been tracking with issues here at home. And it really does come down to the pocketbook issues. And when President Biden made the announcement about the so-called student loan forgiveness, and I say so-called because it's really just a debt transfer, that hit people in the community in a way that I really didn't expect. Now, granted, I live in a college town, but people from every walk of life, from every background, were so upset about it. I had people stopping me in the grocery store, even up until last night, saying, this is ridiculous. So it's been good seeing everybody, but it's been really, really interesting seeing how these national issues are tracking here at home.
That's so interesting because now we're into September, and this is when we really figure out what are the issues people care about, what's driving this election. And it sounds to me like inflation, pocketbook issues, they're still number one.
Yes, absolutely. As I said, last night I was in the grocery store, and I had a woman come up to me, and she's a Democrat. And she says, I worked really hard to put myself through school, and my husband and I worked really hard to save for our kids' future and their education. And our kids now, because of what we did, were able to graduate with no loan debt. But it was a lot of sacrifice. And now, we're seeing people who got, degrees that have no practical use in today's economy, and they're being rewarded for it. And she was just so upset. I could see it. And, you think about the vacations that people didn't take or, the things that they didn't experience or buy because they were making those sacrifices in order to, save and be smart about their pocketbook. And then, of course, even though fuel has come down here nationally, and I know the White House has been touting it, the thing that's been really discouraging is their lack of acknowledgement that they were the reason why it went up in the first place. And so it's still higher than it was a year ago. We actually were working with Americans for Prosperity and lowered the price of gas for an hour at one of our local gas stations to $2.38, which is what it was nationally the day before Biden took office. And, it required a police escort basically to get into the gas station. People were like, oh, my gosh, this is incredible. And it really speaks to how much it means to be able to fill up your gas tank. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but when I'm driving around and talking with folks, they say, I can't fill up my gas tank anymore all the way. Yeah. I'll put in half a tank because I got to save for groceries, or the kids are going back to school. It really is the kitchen table issues that are driving people to the polls. They're really keeping people up at night, really worrying about, are they going to be able to survive? And they see this impending storm of recessionary policies and politics coming at them.
And on the student loan piece, I think people just want the system to be fair, to be equitable, that there isn't certain groups being advantaged or disadvantaged, picking winners and losers, as we say in politics. And I saw this when Republicans did their tax cuts during the Trump administration. Democrats were really exercised about it. Now we have this, and it's just people just want a fair system, and they get mad. And yeah, I've heard a lot of Democrats saying that too, talking about their own sacrifices and being very angry. We were looking at polling yesterday. People are very sharply divided on this issue.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that is really getting to people is that our entire system, and I talk about this a lot, the United States of America, people flock here because we are a nation built on the idea of equal opportunity, not equal outcome. And it seems like in this case, it is an equal outcome because it doesn't matter how well you did, how much you saved, how much you planned, what your degree was in. You could have a gender studies degree or an engineering degree, and it didn't matter. You were equally rewarded, which is just wrong. That's not who we are as a nation, as a culture, as a people. And so I think you're going to see people really upset about this, regardless of party. I think this is going to move independents towards the Republican ticket more in the fall because they're seeing that it's not the America that they grew up in. It's not the America that they want their kids to grow up in the direction that we're heading. And when you think about just the economics of it, it's not a forgiveness. There is no way to forgive, and of course, Penn Wharton came out with that study saying this is going to cost us over $1 trillion. It's more of a debt transfer. And so you have people who are saying, well, now my kids I'm not going to be able to save for my kids away because I'm going to be paying someone else's debt. And so it's something that we've got to get very serious about. You see the Fed is continuing to struggle, looking at another rate increase. People are not buying homes as quickly as they were, in previous months and years. Everything's kind of grinding to a halt. And for the federal government to slap on more regulations, another quote unquote forgiveness, which is just going to jack up the price of everyone's taxes, it's really, really concerning, especially, like I said, kids are going back to school and it was costing parents about $600 to $625 more than last year in school supplies per child.
Wow.
So they're really feeling it. I mean, folks are feeling it at every turn. And I use my mom as a good example for our folks that are on fixed incomes. She's retired. And, when I talk to her, she's like, my heating bill's going up again. And, these are all things that people on fixed incomes have to contend with no additional income coming in. There hasn't been an adjustment to make up for, 9% inflation. So it's really concerning about the total direction that I think is going to drive people to the polls. But we also have the reality of the now that we're trying to contend with that is very uncomfortable for so many.
Meanwhile, you've been working on a farm bill.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of farming in your district?
I'm so excited.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, every 5 years, Congress does the farm bill. And it is the policy that really decides what our agricultural farm policies are like for the next 5 years and those programs, but also the nutritional EBT SNAP programs. And when you look at the breakdown of it, it's about 80% nutritional and 20% farm programs. And the farm production side is so critical. I mean, obviously, if you enjoy a meal a couple times a day, you know how critical agriculture is. And it clearly is a national security issue. So our farmers and ranchers, really producers, have seen a real onslaught of challenges here in the last several years, from labor. Of course, fuel prices has left our producers planting less. The cost of fertilizer has skyrocketed several hundred times over in terms of percentages, and it's made it very, very difficult to produce or yield a productive crop. And so we're going to be looking at ways that we can support our farmers going into a very difficult couple of years, because agriculture is not something that you can just flip a light switch on and boom, you're producing. It takes a very long ramp up to get to the level of production that you need in order for it to even just be profitable, even just a little bit to break even. So we're looking at ways that we can, of course, lower the cost of energy, and a lot of that is in support of, domestic production, looking at ways that we're going to bring down the cost of fertilizers. A lot of that is through domestic production here, which means we've got to roll back some regulatory issues, looking at labor concerns and how we can really streamline a broken system that's been in place for so long. And of course, we have so many markets abroad that aren't available to our producers here domestically. So looking at ways that we can get some fair and free trade going. USMCA was a good start, but here in Florida, it was pretty detrimental to some of our specialty crop producers. And so, there's just a litany of things that aren't exactly headline grabbing, but so important to our everyday lives in ways that we don't really appreciate. I saw a school field trip going into a grocery store last year, and it kind of struck me as odd that, they're talking about food production to this elementary school class, and they should have been out on a farm. I represent a very agricultural district, and I'm like, why aren't they going to the farm? That's where it comes from, not from the grocery store. So, we've got a long way to go, but I think that getting some lifelines for our producers so that they can stay afloat. The family farm has really been under assault for a long time, and the Farm Bill is going to be addressing a lot of that, as well as high-tech precision ag, and, of course, something that I think everyone can benefit from, deployment of broadband across the country. It's kind of crazy in 2022 that we have people that still do not have broadband capability, which is so critical to every community and family today.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack, Republican of Florida. You can find her on Twitter at RepCatCammack. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too. Have a great day.